One UI 6 is slowly being pushed out to more and more Samsung devices. The latest to get it is the Z Fold 5. Today, we're going to explore every single change that One UI 6 has brought to Samsung's premier foldable. Let's go. Hello everyone, welcome back to Tech with Benefits. You're here with Daniel. Today we're going to explore One UI 6 and the Z Fold 5. We have looked at One UI 6 versus One UI 5.1 on the S23 Ultra, but what is different about the Fold 1? We're going to look at everything, every single thing that Samsung put into their update description, I guess you could say, and a couple of things that they left out that I've managed to dig up and find for myself. We're going to do it across a multitude of different categories. We're going to look at like the interface and some of the ways you can interact with it a bit differently. Then going to shift to the camera and how the camera has changed from a user interface perspective. Not really from an output level. There's a couple of things that they've added, which I'll show you, but not necessarily focused on output. Then we're going to look at some of the apps that Samsung make and some of the differences that's happened there. And then we're going to dive into the settings and find what we can there also. Let's start off with the user interface. Okay, so the first thing you sort of notice just in general is the actual feel of One UI 6 is slightly different. There's a new font that Samsung has enabled on the apps and everything around the operating system. That's all brand new, and it's like a different feel with the icons as well. Can't quite describe it. It's like almost a little bit smaller, but that's on there. Probably the first thing you'll notice almost immediately is the new quick panel. Not the one swipe down, but two swipes down. On the one swipe down, Samsung has enabled the brightness slider to be there by default. Normally you do have to go switch it on, so I do like that change. It's there from the start. Two swipes down gives you Samsung's new expanded quick panel. What you see here is a couple of toggles that have been removed out from the normal, I guess, quick panel, and given their own space to be permanently docked there. Things like Wi-Fi, things like Bluetooth, down the bottom, things to do with the brightness and the display. You've got dark mode and the other one that's next to there. Plus also down the bottom, Smart View has also come out from this expanded quick panel as well. In the middle, you've still got the swipes across to access extra toggles, but the ones you use more frequently, they're going to be permanently based there. On the S23 Ultra, I wasn't sure about the expanded quick panel, but on the Fold 5, especially on the inner display, that expanded quick panel is perfect. It fits the aspect ratio of the display really nicely. Everything is kind of proportionally sort of spaced out, and it just kind of looks natural, like it's meant and designed for that display. I really like it. Alongside this new quick panel, Samsung have improved the notification layout. At the time of shooting my B-roll, I had no notifications, but you get the idea. They're just a little bit more separated. Samsung has grouped them a little bit differently. It is nice once you start interacting with it a bit more consistently. The other big update to the quick panel is the music player. It used to be really plain on One UI 5. Samsung have now brought it to life. Not in the thin view. When you press the down arrow and expand it, you get the album art, you get the waveform of the music. It's a lot nicer to interact with. It looks a lot better. It also makes its way to the lock screen too. So if you lock your phone and play music, you'll see that music player and that aesthetic brought to that as well. And that's probably a good place to segue into the lock screen. Samsung mentioned in the release notes that there is an update to the lock screen. Reposition your clock. That was it. Thanks, Samsung. Samsung have updated some widgets, the weather widget specifically they've mentioned. Not that it's different per se, it's just when you do open the weather app, there is some better, more contextual information once you're inside there. Samsung have also fixed the broken animations when you swipe home from something you've opened from a widget, and now the animation returns to the widget. I told you it'd be fixed. There is also a new Smart Suggestions widget. It's not that it's new in terms of how it operates, it just has a fresh design. It used to look like, how do I describe it, like a widget. You'd have a background, it sort of had a border. Now it just looks like apps on your screen. I ran into a bit of problem with my Smart Suggestions widget on my Fold 5. I noticed it wasn't loading immediately when I would either access it or unlock my phone. And then I also noticed some incredibly high battery percentage drain from Smart Suggestions. I'll talk about battery when I get to the settings at the end, but it's just a little bit weird to see this high percentage coming from Smart Suggestions. So I've taken it off. I'll monitor it over the next couple of days to see the difference, but early indications are that there might be something wrong with the Smart Suggestions widget in One UI 6 on the Fold 5. With multitasking, Samsung said that you can now keep pop-ups open in the recents menu. So if you have a pop-up window of an app open, when you swipe out of it or remove it to a little button, when you go into recents, the pop-up is there. And when you click on it, it opens back into the pop-up form. It's kind of neat. When you go into searching for apps, the Finder app now allows you to long press on the app that you've searched for and go straight to an action. Those shortcuts were accessible from the Finder menu. You actually see them in the list, but you can now just long press on the app and do that as well. So there's just another way to do it. That's all that Samsung has updated. There's new emojis in the keyboard. Samsung have put some new emojis. I'm neither here nor there. Emojis are emojis. People kick up a big fuss. For me, the other person that sees it on their phone, they're seeing what their phone's emojis are, so it doesn't really make a difference. The other thing I noticed is that with these emojis, they're a bit lighter with the expression. So that's probably it. There's no more shadows to them. There's a bit more colourful in their appearance. That's really all I noticed. Now we're going to get into the camera. And there's a lot here to unpack with the camera. Samsung, whilst visually it just has a bit of a different look and feel, there is actually some functionality changes to go along with it. As far as the look goes, Samsung has updated the fonts from the system into the camera as well, so you do notice that straight away. But also some of the icons are a little bit fresher, have a little bit more purpose about them, and are fit for what they are actually trying to tell you to do. As far as function changes goes, Samsung has brought out the high resolution from the aspect ratio menu, I guess in photo mode, and made it its own button. With the Z Fold 5, how it only has 2 resolutions to swap between, 50 and 12, pressing it will immediately change the resolution, which is different from the S23 Ultra, which obviously has 3 different resolution stages that you can choose from. One thing that this change brings is you can shoot high resolution in a different aspect ratio. Before, when you had 50 megapixel, it could only be 4:3. That is the size of the sensor. Now, you can choose to crop it to a different aspect ratio. So if you want to take up 5:4, which is the full width of the screen, you can do that. It doesn't, of course, take a 50 megapixel photo. It crops it into 45 megapixel. Just thought you might want to know that because you can do it. That snappier way of choosing resolutions makes its way to video in that you can choose a little bit more user-friendly the resolution and the frame rate that you're wanting to shoot in. It's just a little bit more visually, aesthetically pleasing and should make it a bit easier to find the setting that is right for you. Another thing from a functionality standpoint that Samsung have enabled is a new way to scan your receipts. It's a very different one compared to what I've been talking about, but basically in the settings, Samsung has enabled a couple of new menu options. They've removed Scene Optimizer out of the menu that it was in, and they've actually given it into a separate menu entirely called Advanced Intelligent Options. Scan Documents has now got a new thing called Auto Scan. So if you hover your camera over the top of a document and it recognizes it, immediately it will scan it. So rather than you having to press the shutter button, it'll optimize that for you, cut around the document, and then take the photo. It then takes you to the edit screen where you can edit and fiddle and save. But that first part is all automated. It's very clever and does make that process a whole lot easier. If you take photos of receipts a lot, you'll know what I'm talking about. When we dive into the settings of the camera, Samsung has added some extra functions in here as well. From the Advanced Intelligent menu that I was talking about, Samsung has removed some things from Camera Assistant and put them into the camera settings natively. It used to be all about capture speed. Now it's just about maximum quality, medium quality, and minimum quality. I got it out there eventually. Choosing medium or minimum, you immediately turns off Scene Optimizer and it grays it out. You cannot turn it back on. So if you like what Scene Optimizer does in terms of punching up certain scenarios, you can't use those 2 options. But if you're looking for a faster capture speed in certain scenarios, certain situations, then those 2 will give you exactly that. They just will do less post-processing. In settings too, this is to do with video, there's a new auto FPS option, which will allow you to toggle between different frame rates to allow auto FPS to function. Previously, it's just a toggle that would be on or off. Now you can choose whether you want to enable it for 30 and 60 or just for 30. Probably good, especially if you want it to be fixed at 60 to leave it at 30. Because if you shoot 60, that's an intentional move. Because what auto FPS does is it dials it between as low, I think it's 15 FPS and goes up to 60 and it sort of frame rates in between. So you don't necessarily want that if you're wanting it to stay at that fast frame rate. Samsung has enabled you to be able to turn off the swipe up or down to change from the rear to the selfie camera. I don't know what to make of this. It has annoyed me on occasion where I've tried to swipe across to a camera mode and I've gone to selfie mode. So I can see why Samsung has enabled this toggle, but for the inconvenience of one time out of 100 that this happens, I'd prefer to leave it on. Anyway, the toggle's there, and as you can see, it absolutely stops you from going from front to rear and back again. You have to use the old-fashioned way. Now, probably the second best feature in this update is Samsung enabling the photo leveler across every camera mode except panorama. Basically, to make this work, you need to have the grid lines turned on in the camera. But what this does is in portrait photos, portrait video, video mode, single take, any camera mode on the phone except panorama, you will be able to have the leveler feature show you the horizon line and keep your photos level. Honestly, makes such a big difference to videos and photos alike, because you might think you're holding it straight, but the AI from the grid lines will actually help you correct that. And you can see the difference here between not having it on and on. It's a world apart, and having it on just makes sure you be able to keep the photo and the video level. The best camera feature Samsung enabled in this update isn't actually in the native camera settings at all. It's through Camera Assistant. Samsung enabled this in One UI 5.1 on the S23 Ultra back in August, I think it was. So it's great that it's come to the fold with One UI 6. In Camera Assistant, right at the top, there is a 2x crop shortcut button. What it does is it uses Samsung's advanced algorithms of remosaic to reorganize the pixels to crop in from the high resolution mode when you press the 2x button, because it adds that 2x button into the photo and video and night mode, which is just splendid. And I've got a bit of a side-by-side here. I didn't want to use an S23 Ultra because this has its capability already enabled. So I grabbed the Note 20 Ultra and I zoomed in 2x on the Note 20 Ultra and 2x on the Fold 5. The Note 20 Ultra has a 108 megapixel main camera. So you'd think from a resolution standpoint, it's got its beat, but absolutely not. The Fold 5 trounced it with the 2x and took a much sharper and clearer photo thanks to this processing and this algorithm that Samsung's enabled. Absolutely go and turn this on. You'll need to download Camera Assistant from Goodlock or from the Galaxy Store to make sure you can turn this on. There are some things though that the Z Fold 5 didn't get that the S20 Ultra did. One of those is the high resolution settings within Camera Assistant, but whatever, I barely look at those anyway. The other one though that I was a little bit more disappointed with is it didn't get the ND filter option from the S20 Ultra within Expert RAW. You can go and watch my One UI 6 camera comparison where I look at the ND filter and how it operates. But I was really hoping to see that here on the Fold 5, particularly when it has flex mode. You can take advantage of keeping it still, but it was nowhere to be seen. Closely linked into camera is the gallery. Samsung's gallery is stacked full of features. I intend one day to make a full breakdown of Samsung's gallery and compare it to Google Photos, because you will not find a more feature-rich gallery than Samsung's version. But I'll leave that for another video. What Samsung has enabled within this gallery is a couple of tweaks to how you interact and some features behind the scenes to make it a lot easier to use. First one is when you click on a photo, the information button appears in the center. It never used to be there. The way you'd access information about the photo is you'd have to swipe up. Samsung has put this button here to make it a little bit more foolproof. So you press the button, bring up information. What this does too is when you bring up information, Samsung has now added some little toggles to, I guess, suggest some editing to your photo. There's photo remaster and there's object eraser that kind of seem to be the default. For the right type of photo, Samsung will put in a portrait effect button there. So if it's a photo of a face, Samsung puts this there and you can actually press this button and it'll add that portrait effect and you can control the depth level as you wish with the slider. Really clever. It used to be in the 3-dot menu down the bottom, but I like that Samsung have thought to make it more in your face so people, it's a bit more obvious to people wanting to use it. What I also found out too is that within this context, for actual portrait photos, Samsung has removed the change effect button and put it into this information tab. So it used to sit at the bottom, but now you'd have to swipe up or press the information icon and the button there to change the background effect appears. I don't know. I liked it more in your face from before. It's weird that in one instance they're bringing something more prominent into your face and the other way they're making something that was more prominent a bit more hidden. I don't quite understand the logic, but when you think about it from a uniformity point of view, it makes sense to have something that changes the photo uniformed with something else that also changes the photo. There it is. Within the gallery too, you can drag and drop with 2 fingers. So if you hold down with one finger on the photo and use the other finger to interact with the screen, you can then navigate to the album you want and drop it into there. You can copy or move it. Either way, it just means that you have bit more usability when it comes to moving things around. There's some other things within Gallery Labs that no one's really talking about. The first thing within Gallery Labs that I kind of notice is that you can bring back the 3-dot menu that Samsung removed. So each time Samsung release a new version of One UI, Samsung adds some more stuff into Gallery Labs. I should say, to enable Gallery Labs, you have to go into the About Gallery and tap on the version of Gallery 7 or 8 times. Mine doesn't show up because I've already enabled it, but just so you know, that's where you go. There's a couple other toggles in there that I found kind of interesting. But the one that I definitely am intrigued by is Remote Gallery. You turn this on, and providing your stuff is all connected to the same Wi-Fi network, using another phone to scan the QR code, you can access the gallery from another device within that network. Except you can't, because I haven't got it to work yet. I'll keep testing it and keep trying it, but for now, no bueno. When we move into the photo editor, so once you're in a photo, Samsung has reinvigorated the layout of the photo editor. The object eraser has sort of got a better spot now. There's a 4-dot menu on the left. You press that and object eraser sits inside there. I love object eraser. Oh, this is before Samsung goes heavy on AI. I can't wait to see what they do within the gallery, within AI's context. Very excited. If object eraser is already this good, imagine what it's going to be like when it goes to the AI level. Something else that has a better updated version is Samsung's video editor. They've renamed it. It's called Studio. It's actually in line with Samsung's laptop. There's a Studio app on there that also edits videos. To access this, you go into the bottom of the hamburger menu of the gallery, and there is a literal button that says Go to Studio. It's in your face. Samsung have also pushing it to try and get you to add it to your home screen. There must be someone there that really likes it and wants people to use it. So use it. What I like about it, apart from the fact it's got a more enhanced editing capability, is that once you actually exit out of a project, it saves it. With Samsung's other video editor, if you exit out of a project, you have to discard the whole thing. This keeps the project saved and allows you to go back to them at a later date. Perfection. Something else about it too is that it's actually quite fast at exporting. So I exported in 4K video and it did it quite quickly. Obviously that's got a lot to do with the processor, but obviously I want to see where this goes as well, because starting off from a good base here, I hope Samsung keep building with it. And the last little update to Gallery is not really Gallery, it's Samsung's video player. Samsung has put a little toggle in the bottom corner to toggle the speed. It used to be a slider. Now it's buttons. Anything to improve usability, I'm okay with, but this is a small one. Now we move on to apps. Samsung has a plethora of first-party apps that cover a wide range of things. I've said it before, and I'll say it again, those apps are not bloatware. They are absolutely a crucial part of Samsung's ecosystem and service ecosystem, and anyone who says otherwise doesn't know what they're talking about. Let's start with Samsung Health. This actually got updated before One UI 6, but it was done before One UI 6 to make sure it was ready for One UI 6. The layout's just a little bit fresher, and there's a new added feature that I think was needing to be there years ago, is that you can set custom cup sizes for water. You used to only be able to do 250 ml at a time, which I get it, that's a cup. Some people drink a bottle of water, and you don't know how big that bottle is. You know how big the bottle is, but you don't know how much you've drank. You can set the custom cup size in here to whatever you want. Add it in there, select it. That's your cup size whenever you press the plus button. Samsung's got a couple of new things within the calendar. There's a new schedule view, which now allows you to see a chronological order of everything that's booked into your calendar, and you can see it on a list as opposed to having to see it with gaps in your calendar. I think that's kind of neat. What also Samsung have done is you can move events with 2 fingers again. So if you hold it down with one finger and you swipe, and with the other you drop it into the new location that you'd like it to be. That only works with the day and the week view, not the month. So just be aware of that. And Samsung has integrated reminders into the calendar app, which I think eventually will probably just happen anyway. I get their reminders app has some extra stuff about it, but honestly, just make it one app. Call it calendar and reminders. Everyone will be happy. But there is some updates to the reminders app. It's not a lot. Samsung has just refined the list view and given it some extra categories, but there is some refinements there. Test them out if you like. Samsung has said that there's improvements, but honestly, just put it into the calendar. Make everyone's life a whole lot easier. With Samsung Internet, which again is probably the best mobile internet browser that's available, come at me in the comments. This feature probably everyone needs to know about. You can play videos in the background once you exit out of the tab or exit out of the browser. Think about it. You're watching a video on your favorite video app. You exit out and you want the sound to keep playing just so you can hear something. On that app, turns it off. But in Samsung Internet, if you go into the useful features option and toggle this on, you will enable the option to keep playing the video in the background. Something you might want to consider. Something else Samsung said is on devices with large screens, there's a new list view for open tabs. And it's in landscape view. You have to have the phone in landscape view. So for fold, it's perfect because it's designed for larger screens and for decks as well. But fold being the larger in display, having it in landscape view, you get the more refined list view, which I like. My Files, again, an excellent file management app that Samsung have got built into their phones. They've refined the trash or the recycle bin, whatever you want to call it, to integrate the gallery and the voice recorder into the one recycle bin. Consolidation is my favorite thing. When people consolidate things into one thing, just means you don't have to find it in different things. So Samsung, I'm all for this move, having one place where all your trash is stored. Thumbs up. Bixby Text Call. The big update here is that once you start a call and you're deep in the call, you can switch to it. This can be great if you answer a call and you realize it's, oh, I shouldn't be in this call. Bixby Text Call can take care of it for you. Smart Select. Samsung with Smart Select allows you now to pin a Smart Select to your home screen and allow you to extract text from it. So you could always pin Smart Select. If you Smart Select something with text in it, the little text button will be there and you can copy the text out of that pinned screenshot, which I think is kind of clever, and more people will probably start pinning things because of it. And now we'll get on to settings. Samsung always updates some settings in the back end, little tiny things, quality of life improvements I like to call them, just make the user experience a lot more friendly. The thing I really like is the smarter airplane mode, especially because my family and I like to go traveling a lot. One thing I hate is I'm always going to connect to the in-flight Wi-Fi and I'm always going to connect and want to stay connected to my watch. So the first thing I do, as soon as flight mode gets turned on, is toggle on Wi-Fi and Bluetooth immediately. What's smart about the new airplane mode for Samsung is that it will remember that choice, and the next time you would toggle on flight mode, it'll leave those on. You won't have to go and manually re-enable them. They stay on, which is great. Samsung has made the battery settings a little bit easier to access. They used to be housed in device care. They're still there, but now they just have their own menu. With the Fold, I noticed something really weird. It's right down the bottom, underneath the About phone, which doesn't seem like the right place for it, but it's there. So, and there's a new design for the battery menu as well. You can see that it looks visually different to what you probably have used to and seen before. While we're on battery, I touched on it earlier. I noticed a very heavy battery drain with oneui 6 when I started using it. Honestly, couldn't put my finger on it. It was just getting to a certain point of the day where I was like, wow, this is unusually low. And then I dug a little bit deeper. To be honest, didn't have to dig that deep. It was right there in my face. Smart Suggestions, 33.4% battery drain. An app, a widget that sits there idle, doing nothing, or at least you think, sipping and taking that much battery away from me. So I've removed it, and in the 2 days it's been gone, it's been so much better. So I think there must be something broken with Smart Suggestions. So if you're having something similar with your oneui 6 and you're using that widget, just remove it for now, and hopefully Samsung patch it in a future update because it's not good. oneui 6 has basically been all about refinement. Samsung has made some visual tweaks, some functionality tweaks, but it's nothing that's been overhauled with the operating system, which again, I don't think is a big problem. People have gotten used to how to use this phone now. It'd be really strange for Samsung to throw it away and start again. Granted, they did need to do that when they had things like TouchWiz and Samsung Experience, but we're at a point now where I don't think that needs to happen again. In saying that, I am very excited for what oneui 6.1 will bring when Samsung brings it out with next year's S lineup. So here's to that. Make sure you subscribe because there's going to be a lot of content around that launch next year. So give this video a like as well to feed it to the algorithm gods. Come follow me on my socials. I've got Twitter/X and also Instagram, and I'll see you in the next one. You!